Hi everybody, welcome to Cheryl's Creations. I'm Cheryl. I have my camera set up to show you some work. The thing I'm going to do today is talk about a couple of techniques for amigurumi. For those that might be beginners, there's a couple of different things you can do that make a difference in how your products turn out. I wanted to start with crocheting in the round, or in the circles, or in rounds. One of the things I wanted to kind of talk about is getting started. Many of your patterns will talk about doing a magic ring. Well, let me tell you, I cannot do a magic ring to save my soul. I just can't. I've never learned how to do that. And so I wanted to show you how I do a beginning, and it is still flexible so you can get all your stitches in. So this may be backwards to you, I'm not sure, but I have my yarn, okay? I have the end of my yarn to my right hand side, all right? And I make my loop and pull it through, okay? Because this is on the right hand side, it makes it flexible, all right? So I have my loop, and I'm going to do the chain 2. So I have chained 2, and most of the amigurumis start with 6 single crochets in that first stitch. So there's, 1, 2, and as you can see while I'm holding on to it, this has some give to it, which is the first loop, okay? There's 3, 4, 5, and then I like, because here's my tail, I like to have my last stitch on the left-hand side of my tail. So there is 6 stitches, and I have my tail, all right, and I can just pull it. Oops, I usually have to have some, you can pull that tail, and it tightens that up, okay? So I can loosen it up if I need to add some more. Right? This really is not a good camera angle, and I am so sorry. All right? But I can pull that tight. Okay? So that's how I do my beginning instead of doing a magic loop. So working in rounds, you don't connect with a slip stitch and start over. You just continue on to the next round. So I did 6 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This was my 6th stitch. So I am going to put the first stitch of my second round right there. Okay? And in doing amigurumis, the second row is generally 2 single stitches in each of the rounds. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And this is where I would normally put a stitch marker, okay? Because for each of the rows going forward, you need to know where the beginning of these rows are. And so here is one that I've got worked up, and I've put in my stitch marker. The stitch markers are movable. You can kind of move them as you go with rows. With doing rounds, another thing I wanted to talk about was how you place your stitches, in the rounds. Some instructions will say do your single stitches first and then a double stitch, or two stitches and one stitch. So this one I've done that with. If you look at this last round, let me get my eyeballs going here. 2 stitches and then 1, 2, 3, and then 2 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and then 2 stitches. The one thing that this does is it gives you kind of some corners, gives you that octagon look, okay? As you come up, you would do 1 single stitch and then 2 stitches, 1 single. Okay, then the next row is 2 single stitches and then 2 in the same stitch. The next row is 3 single stitches and then 2 in the same stitch. So by doing it that way, it gives you that type of a look. If you don't want as much of that look, then what you do is you you split the even numbered stitches. So in this one, this row was my 12, or yeah, my 6 stitches, and then 2 in each stitch, which was 12. This row was 1 single stitch, then 2 in the next one, then 1, then 2. The difference is when you get out here to this next row. This next row has 2 single stitches and then 2 stitches in the next stitch. But what you do is you split that. So where I started, okay, I did 1 single stitch, then 2 in the next, then 2 single stitches, and then 2 in the next stitch. 2 single stitches, 2 in the next stitch. I did that all the way around till I got to the last stitch. Okay, so you've come around, you've done your 2 single stitches, and then your last 2 stitches in 1 stitch. Then you're going to have 1 stitch left over and you do a single stitch. Okay. The next row being an odd number of single stitches, you start out with all of your single stitches. So it would be 3 single stitches and then 2, 3 single stitches and then 2. And you would do that all the way around. The next row, because it is even numbers, you would split the even numbers. So you would start off and you would do 2 single stitches and then your 2 stitches in one, then 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then your 2 stitches in the single stitch, and then 4 with your 2, 4, and 2. You'd come all the way around till you got to the end. You would have your two stitches in your single stitch, and then you would have 2 stitches left over, which would be single stitch. That gives you, and if you do that, no matter how many rounds you have, you know, if you end up with 10 rounds, so you would have 10 single stitches and then the 2, you would split that 5 and 5. Okay, so all the way out. And what it does is it gives you a little rounder type of beginning. So that's 2 different ways. And you do the same thing when you go to decrease. Like this one, if I would go to decrease, got my hook stuck. See, what do I have? 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I'm going to decrease this, right, I'm going to do, since this was 4 and 2, I'm going to do 2 stitches. Okay. Then my decrease. All right. Then I'm going to do 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then my decrease. All right. I would do that all the way around. And then I would have 2 stitches left over, so it would be 2 single stitches. Okay. What else do you need to know about the rounds? Okay. So with amigurumi, one of the things that you may consider is hook size. Most people say they go down a hook size when doing amigurumi, gives it a little bit tighter look, and gives it some structure. Sometimes you want to be careful of that. The one piece I'm working on now says to use a 2.5 hook. If I would have been using a 2.5 hook, I'm telling you, I'd have been struggling. It would have been a hard, I mean, I'm using worsted weight. It's a 4 weight with a 2.5 hook, which makes it kind of difficult. So you just have to look at your patterns, and see what size of hook works best. Okay. So this is the first video of the 2 different types of rounds that you can use. Check back in a few days. I'm going to continue on with other tips for amigurumi. So be sure to like and share, maybe give my videos a thumbs up. I know I'm not the best at tutorials. This is kind of my first one. So I'm working on getting better. I hope that you all have a fantastic day. And be sure and get some crochet in. Have a great one.